All right, so the first thing we do is multiply a times c on this one, and we get 540. All right, now that we have our 540, we know that that's what we're multiplying to, and we're adding to 96. Now let's think about which numbers do we actually need to check here. So should I actually bother checking 2 in this case? Well, does 2 go into this?
Yes.
Yes, it does, because it goes into this, which went into that. So yes, we should check the 2. Should we check 3? Yes, because 3 goes into the 27, and therefore it also goes into 540. Should we check 4? Yeah, we make 4s out of 2s, so yes. 5?
Yes.
Yep, 5 goes into 20. Should we check 6?
No.
Well, 6 is made up of 2 and 3. Remember, 2 and 3 both work. So that's why that works. Now, should we check 7? No. 7 does not go into either of these. That's why that's not on the list. But basically everything else here works. So this is one where we are going to have to check a few more numbers probably. But thankfully, the 540 isn't quite as big as some of those other ones get, right? So when we start checking those through, though, you end up finding that 6 ends up being your winning number. Because when we do the 540 divided by 6, you get 90, and 90 plus 6 gives you 96. All right, so from here, we now are going to factor out of those first two terms. So I look at the 20 and x squared and the 6x, and I can factor out a 2x out of both of those. And then we look at the last two terms, and we say, what can we divide out of both of those? Looks like we would pull a 9 out of both of those. Remember, that's going to be plus 9, and then the parentheses. Then it's a matter of now checking, do we in fact have the same thing in both of the parentheses? And yes, we do. Therefore, we know we did it right up to this point. So now we just take our one last step of factoring that 10x plus 3 out of both terms, and we're left with the 10x plus 3 times the 2x plus 9. And that's it. We're done. And of course, the first thing you do on this one is you again multiply a times c. So 77 times negative 60 gives us negative 4,620. And then when I start looking to see which numbers I would need to check, there's actually a lot of numbers that we would need to check. Because 2 goes into 60. 3 goes into 60. 4 works because, of course, 2 works, right? 5 goes into 60. 6 goes into 60. 7 goes into 77. 8 might work. 9 might work, just because they are made out of 2s and 3s. So there's a lot of stuff to check here. So I'm going to give you a hint here that's going to help us to not have to start by dividing by 2 and then by 3 and then by 4. You notice that the number that's in the middle here is just a 4, and we're multiplying to a negative. So that tells me that my two numbers need to be 4 numbers apart. That's pretty close together. So if I could know where the other end of this list is, like the top end, I'd be better off starting there, because that's where our two numbers will be closer together. Remember how we can find out where that top end of the list is. We take the square root of our number, because that's where it transitions from high to low to become low to high. And so this is the exact center of our list of numbers. Now, remember, we don't need to try anything over that. So if I'm taking a look at this, I'm actually going to start then at 67. That would be the very first number that I would choose. And then if that doesn't work, I would go to 66. I would start at the top end like this and go down. And remember why we were able to use such a small list, why we were able to start at the top. I started there because I know that my two numbers are going to be close together. So that's what told me to use the square root. All right, so you checked them through and hopefully come up with the combination of 66 and 70. And so once you get here, then it's just a matter of following our same factoring process that we've been using. So continue the process to finish factoring this one if you haven't already. Using that same old process gets us to our final answer then. So you notice again, what we've been talking about the last number of lessons hasn't actually been anything new. All we've been doing is taking a look at this and figuring out strategies to be able to find our combination of numbers here a little bit faster. That's really all we've been doing. Everything from that point forward has been the exact same for a week and a half. So let's do one last problem with these.
And then we get number 1.
So please factor this. All right, so when you multiply A times C in this case, you end up getting 2,079. And then we're going to be adding to a negative 96. Now, if you're multiplying to a positive, but adding to a negative, remember that tells us that both of our two numbers must be negatives. Because a negative times a negative is going to give us a positive, but the negative plus the negative will give us the negative in the middle. But then let's think about which numbers we need to check. Should we check 2? Nope. This is not even. Should we check 3? Yes, 3 does go into it. Now, if you can't look at this and tell me that 3 goes into it, you could at least look at this and know that 3 went into that, which then tells me that 3 must go into that. So yes, 3 is worth checking. How about 4? Is 4 worth checking? No, it's even. Anything that's even in this case isn't going to work, because if 2 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work. What about 5? Is 5 worth checking here? Nope. 6? It's even. 7? Yes, 7 is worth checking because it goes into 77. 8? No, it's even. 9? 9 is worth checking, yes. Because remember, 9 is made up of 3s. And 3s do go into 27. Okay? 10 wouldn't work because it's even. Should we check 11? Yes. And we can kind of keep going with that same kind of thought process to keep coming up with any other numbers that we might need to check. But when we do that, and again, we're doing this mentally behind the scenes, these are all the numbers you have to check in order to be able to find our winning combination.